So I made the trip to Computer Reset again, and that's because I heard about something remarkable, and that's this palette of Apple II color monitors. The remarkable part is not so much the monitors themselves, rather what they've been through. These monitors were found out back behind the building, so yes, they were exposed to the rain, humidity, and Texas summer heat for about 15, maybe 20 years. This is basically the same environment of being buried in a landfill. The amazing part is that the team of volunteers brought them all inside and powered them on, and amazingly every one of them worked, at least to some extent. Now, one of the volunteers took me around the back and showed me the area where they were found, and as you can see, it's mostly cleaned up now compared to before, but there's still a lot of keyboards and a few dumb terminals there, but those should be cleaned up soon. So, here they are on this palette, and what I'm going to do is pick one out and take it home and attempt to restore it. And as you can see, these are in pretty nasty condition, and if I hadn't already been told they were working, I would have said there was no chance of them working. Now, a lot of them, as you can see, are missing that bottom cover over the adjustments, so I decided to pick one of the two that has the cover intact. So I took this one to my car. Now, fun fact, this is the back of the building, and most of these cars are either volunteers or people coming to shop, which is by appointment only on special days. And these tables are where people will bring out their finds and start making a little pile before it gets loaded into their vehicle. Speaking of vehicle, I brought some towels because I didn't want this monitor touching the seats of my car. I do usually strap in CRTs with a seatbelt like this. You might be wondering why these were thrown out. Well, most antiques go through what's known as the UCurve, and they start off being valuable, and then eventually they become nearly worthless. At this point, a lot of stuff ends up being thrown away or stored away, and as supply dries up, the remaining product tends to become valuable again. These monitors were most likely dumped behind the building at this point in their lifespan when they were worth nothing. Then, most likely they were forgotten about, until now. And here it is at home where we can get a good look at it. It's breathtakingly disgusting. Okay, and so here we are. I've had this thing about 5 weeks now, and I'm just now getting around to doing something with it. I think the first thing we ought to do is just turn it on and see what it does. Normally, I would not dare turn on something like this without taking it apart and inspecting it first, but I already know the guys at the volunteers at Computer Reset already did, and clearly it didn't blow up for them. In fact, they even left a little note up here that says signal needs adjustment, a little liney, whatever that means. But clearly they got some sort of picture out of it. So I'm just going to fire it up so we can have a look and see what it looks like. Obviously, I need a video signal for it, so I've got my trusty Apple IIc here running a copy of Petsky Robots. So anyway, let's cross our fingers here and see what this thing does. No smoke yet. Okay, well, that's something. There's a picture there, but I can't. Oh, and there's some color. This seems to be about the best picture I can get out of it at the moment, but I think there's definitely hope for it. So what I'm going to do now is try to clean it up a bit, at least on the outside. Mostly because right now it's just too disgusting to even want to touch. Windex is always step one for this type of thing. Unfortunately, the paper towels weren't having as much luck as I'd like, so I tried using a brush, and that seemed to help a lot. Next up, I want to clean the actual glass part of the screen. I'd like to get an idea of what condition the glass is in, how how many scratches it may have on it. And to my amazement, the glass seems to be in perfect condition. Well, let's get the rest of it cleaned up. I also need to remove this front panel. These can be pried loose with a screwdriver. This panel will be in the way, and besides, it clearly needs some special attention of its own. Okay, so I'm done with Windex, now I'll move on to the alcohol stage. Unfortunately, alcohol was having little to no effect on this, so we'll move right along to the baking soda stage. As you can see, the wet baking soda worked wonders on this. A lot of people criticize me in the comments for doing this while the item is still fully assembled, suggesting I wait until I take it apart. But the thing is, it's just so much easier to do when the item is rigid and heavy. This takes a lot of pressure, and it's really hard to do with loose pieces of plastic. Besides, this entire thing will be rinsed out before I'm done, so who cares? I thought I'd let you see a before and after shot of the side of the monitor, just to give you an idea of how effective the baking soda is. As you can see, it's pretty clean now. And here we go. This is about as clean as it's going to get. I mean, obviously it's still yellowed and needs retrobrite. Of course, in order to repair whatever's causing the bad picture, I'll have to take it apart. Not only that, but I want to clean it out inside and retrobrite it as well. I'm actually extremely curious to see what sort of condition this thing is on the inside. I mean, if the outside was any indication, it should be downright scary inside. After removing all of the screws, it still didn't seem to want to come apart. I would imagine the various bits of crud have probably glued the two pieces together. But eventually it gave way, and the rear piece separated from the front. And here we go. And here's what it looks like inside. And yeah, it's filthy in here, but I have to be honest, I was expecting worse. But then again, being that it sort of works, maybe I should have been expecting this. It looks like most of the nasty crud has collected in the front bezel, and I think that this monitor was probably facing down most of the time it was in the landfill. That would explain a lot of things. For example, why there was so much crud collected on the back ledge there as opposed to the sides. There's very little corrosion on the shield here. It looks like the worst of it's in this spot. And inside the rear shell, it's actually surprisingly clean. Again, suggesting that the monitor was face down in the dump. Well, I'm going to need to take the rest of this apart, so I'll start by discharging the tube. It's probably already discharged since it's been sitting for a couple of days since I powered it on, but you can't be too careful. And now I'll begin removing the tube. And finally, I can see the condition of these potentiometers. I actually think some of these could be what's wrong with this monitor, especially being at the bottom where they're probably exposed to more evil than the rest of it. And here's the tube. I think this will clean up with some Windex. And so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'll be careful not to get any Windex inside that little anode hole. Unfortunately, the Samsung logo sticker was so degraded it just started to disintegrate. Anyway, the CRT cleaned up pretty well, except for these little paper stickers that just came off. And the front of the CRT looks great. Next, I'll vacuum out all of this crud out of the front bezel of the monitor, and then I'll take out this degaussing coil. Ugh, this front panel is nasty. I was hoping the spray hose would work some magic, but it didn't really help. Fortunately, the brush seemed to work pretty well at loosening up this crud. So the panel's clean, but it still needs retrobrite. And by the way, I'd like to take this opportunity to say how disappointed I am at Apple for using this type of hinge. I mean, it's basically just a piece of plastic that bends. That pretty much guarantees these will all break at some point. And here's that front bezel. Let's see if the spray will help. And yeah, I think it helped a lot. Unfortunately, there's still some residue in there. The brush will take it off, but it's really hard to reach in some of these little corners. And here we go. I mean, it's mostly clean. I could get it 100% clean, but it might take me a week. And since it's on the inside, I'm just not going to worry about it. And now I want to turn my focus to the electronics problem. The first thing I wanted to do is test these potentiometers on the front panel. The way I'm going to do that is just to test the resistance. I don't even know what the values of these are, but I should be able to see if the values change when I rotate the knobs, or if the circuit is completely open or closed. To my surprise, they seem to be working pretty well. If you look at the little bar graph at the bottom of the screen, you can see it moves pretty smoothly up and down. Okay, so the next step is to clean this board, and since it's mostly just dusty, I'm going to just use a brush and a vacuum to clean it up. If there were cat juice or other sticky substances on here, I'd need more drastic cleaning measures. Speaking of the caps, none of these look like they're bad. And I know that's not a guarantee, but I'm not sure I want to replace all these caps just yet until I've ruled out other issues. Which is unfortunate because I already bought all of the caps for this monitor from Mouser, and they're already here, so I do have them on standby if I need to go that route. But one thing I definitely want to clean up is the corrosion on the bottom of this front panel board. This could be the source of some of my problems with the knobs not working. Alcohol did a pretty good job of cleaning this up, and just for the heck of it, I'm going to spray some deoxit into these pots and then rotate them a few dozen times each. And also, I want to clean up this neck board. I think the reason it looks worse is because it sits perpendicular to the main board, and if this was facing down in the dump, then stuff would be more likely to settle on this board. And I also need to clean this ground lug up. I tried alcohol and deoxit, but I didn't think either of those were going to work on this level of corrosion, so I got out the Dremel with a polishing tool on it. And now what I need to do is sort of reassemble everything enough that I can see what the situation is now. So when I powered it on, this is what I got. This is both good and bad. It's bad because I hear some sort of arcing happening, and you can see the issue on the screen. But I think there's improvement as well because, for example, if I pause the video at just the right spot, you can see the image is actually pretty clear. There's no color, and that's probably because I left the color switch in the monochrome mode, but there are no retrace lines, and the image is slightly off-center, but that's easy to adjust. So I talked to Adrian Black about this, and he suggested I turn off the light in the room and see if I could spot any visible arcs, and I could, but I was having trouble figuring out where it was coming from. So I pointed the camera at the board and turned the light off and recorded, and sure enough, I could see one. I've paused the picture right where it happens. If you still don't see it, I'll help you out here. There it is. So let's turn the light back on and figure out where that exact spot is in the picture, and it's right there. Now at first, I thought it was this wire-wrapped post, but I didn't see any visible signs of arcing like I would expect, and honestly, this would be just too darn easy a fix. But then I noticed what was directly behind it, which is really hard to get an angle on, but here it is. And I'll be honest, I'm not even sure what that is supposed to be, but whatever it is, it looks like it blew up. And I think that's the source of the arcing. So fast forward a few days, and I discovered that it was a diode, but I wasn't quite sure what kind. So I figured the easiest way to get a replacement would just be to go back to Computer Reset and pick up another one. I figured surely it wouldn't have the exact same fault as the first one, and I could salvage the diode from it. I'm not going to bother cleaning this one up. In fact, I didn't even bother to plug this one in. Unfortunately, as you can see, the diode on this board looks almost as bad as the one on the first monitor, so quite annoyed now, I started to desolder this one. Some guys online said that maybe if I took the component out, there might be some markings I could look at to determine what value it is. However, once I got the legs desoldered, I turned the board around to find the component was just gone. There was no trace of it. All I could find on the bench was some dust. Apparently, it totally disintegrated with the heat from the soldering iron. Adrian Black has a similar monitor, and he took his apart while helping me troubleshoot. Interestingly enough, his board is a different revision than mine. However, it does have not one, but 3 of these diodes, and they're all in perfect shape. So this is what they're supposed to look like without the corrosion. It's likely this sort of part is simply prone to internal corrosion when left in a humid environment for years on end. But these diodes are no longer manufactured, so I guess that means I'll have to find a modern replacement. However, there is some hope of figuring this out. This is the back side of the board, and this part here is the flyback transformer. Our mystery diode goes here, and it appears to go through an induction coil, a resistor, and straight into the 180 volt leg of the flyback. Well, even though we don't have a schematic available for this monitor, looking at some schematics from similar monitors, I can find the design is almost identical and see what part they used. So I'm sort of hoping maybe this modern diode from Mouser will work. But we'll have to wait until part 2 to find out if that works. So I'll go ahead and order that part from Mouser and try it out and see if it works. Of course, if anybody out there knows exactly the right part number I need, well then by all means email me and I will get that part instead and put it in there. And hopefully we'll get this thing going again. I'm fairly confident that this monitor can actually be made to work, and it's so close to working now, so I'm hoping it's just that one part. But the interesting thing about this is, if I can make this monitor work and look like new again, then that means that there is hope for the millions of other computers that are buried 50 feet under a landfill somewhere. It means that those computers, if they were found, could also potentially be restored. Before this, I would have thought there would be no chance of that, but now I'm thinking actually in many cases it may be possible. Of course, the question is, where do you find them? I mean, they're probably scattered across landfills all across the world, but they are there waiting for someone to dig them up and find them. Oh, and one last thing, while we're talking about Apple stuff, I just wanted to mention that the Apple version of Petsky Robots is now available for sale if you were wanting one of those. But that about wraps it up for this episode. So as always, thanks for watching.